What's going on, everybody? It is Monday night, March 23rd, 2020. This is the Don, Tony, and Kevin Castle Show. I am Don Tony, as always. Went to the doctor today. No coronavirus, thank God. I am not alone. As always, joining along with me is...
Kev Castle. No corona, but a little bit of a cold.
Yeah, I went to the doctor earlier on Twitter. I posted a picture and had to, it pissed me off, man. I'm not kidding. This weekend was not the greatest of weekends, and not necessarily about the virus stuff, because I'm still working because of my insurance business. I'm actually considered an essential worker, believe it or not, even though it sucks. But number one, I take 3 medications. I take Ambien for sleep. I take cholesterol medicine, even though my cholesterol is in order, but they keep you on it longer to make sure everything stays in order. And I also take medicine for blood pressure, even though my blood pressure is like 120/70. And my sleep medicine was up for the month, and so was my blood pressure medicine. So, I call Walgreens, they call my doctor to do the refill, and I get this message saying that I need to call my doctor. I call my doctor up and they said, "Oh, we need to see you." And I said, listen, with everything that's going on, I said, especially in the wintertime, and I've talked about this on the show before, my doctor's office is filled usually with elderly people sick in the wintertime. I said, the last place I want to be right now is in a doctor's office where some people there could be there because they might think they got the coronavirus. I said, can't you refill it for the month and then I'll come in April? And they said, no, you haven't been here in 4 months. You have to come in. So these son of a bitches made me come in today. And sure enough, as soon as I sat down, there's a video on my Twitter right now. And I wrote, whack jobs are in effect. We had some whack job in the office demanding prescriptions, demanding this syrup, demanding this. And I'm like, this is the last place I wanted to be. So, but they did my blood work. They did my urine stuff. They checked my temperature, and everything seems to be okay.
Was it a private doctor or a medical?
Private doctor. My regular doctor that I go to, but I was just pissed off, man, because it's like, sleep medicine, it's not something major where you can't wait a month, for me to come in for blood work. I mean, what do they think is possibly going to be wrong? I mean, I dropped a lot of weight. My cholesterol is good. My blood pressure is good. What's the dire urgency? But these son of a bitches made me come in today. So, and for 2.5 hours, I went through bullshit.
Wow, I'm surprised they made you come in. Like I would figure they would delay, like say, come see us in the summer or something.
Yeah. Now my pain management doctor for Oxycontins, hey, I'll go in every week if I need to, But for sleep, come on, man. Let me wait a month before. And they're like, nope, you need to come in. So I had to go in today.
So it was packed, or they just had a specific?
It was
order? Not
that packed. It was probably about half of the usual crowd. I went with one of those masks on and whatever they call respirator masks or whatever. I don't even know what the hell they're called, but and gloves. And probably the best thing I did, because everybody there had gloves and a mask on. And my doctor, and I swear on a stack of Bibles, my doctor actually sneezed while she was in the office. And as soon as she sneezed, she removed everything, re-washed her hands, changed the gloves, changed this. And I'm like, yeah, it was probably better that I wore this. I was going to wear one tonight on the show, but I remembered I only have 10 total. So I can't be using them as props and everything, because we don't, they're very hard to find. It's not easy to find this stuff right now.
Where'd you find them online?
I found it on Amazon.
Oh, Amazon. Okay.
Yeah, Amazon, I know Mike and John and Joseph and a few others, they took my advice as far as how to buy some things on Amazon right now that are very difficult to get. And, if you pursue it the right way and you put the email alerts in and you keep reloading over and over and over again, it usually pops up. And, I've been able to get a decent amount of toilet paper, paper towels, hand sanitizers, and you go on there right now, and I got news for you. I was going to put this on Twitter earlier, but I was like, I ain't even going to waste my time. Right now, if you go on Amazon, Amazon is selling like a 6 pack of paper towels for $58.
Jesus.
Talk about price gouging. And this is not a vendor selling through Amazon. I was going to post a link in a screenshot, say, look at this shit. Amazon themselves price gouging. But I was like, fuck it. Too many other things going on.
Isn't that illegal in a time of public crisis?
Huh?
Like isn't that illegal to do that? And
yes. Yeah. I thought, maybe they made a mistake and maybe they meant a case, but it was just 6 rolls of paper towels for $58.
Jesus, that's disgusting.
Yeah.
Absolutely disgusting.
So tonight's show, going to let everybody know right up front, we're going to talk about Raw, what went down today. We will talk about the updated card for WrestleMania, a couple of observations. And then you and I are probably going to have a very spirited debate about the Chris Benoit Vice documentary that came out.
Did you see 1 and 2? I saw both.
I skimmed through it. I was very uncomfortable. I did not like it, but I'll explain why later. I'll explain later. I don't want anybody, to get the wrong idea. It was very well made, but I had a couple of major problems with this documentary. But before we do that, we had Raw tonight. You would have thought with how Raw was very poorly presented last week. And then you have AEW, which I thought was presented beautifully.
Yeah.
Having the rampway facing the ring. They darkened the seats. They had people, in attendance, which were the wrestlers, being loud and animated. And then we get SmackDown, and they did the same fucking thing that they did on Raw. Almost like, and I talked about it Friday, almost like WWE just did not want to deal with people saying, they copied AEW. Well, tonight, I guess this was a Paul Heyman idea, but tonight, I don't call it copying from AEW. I call it improving the aesthetics of your product. One thing that I loved about AEW, besides the camera facing the rampway, was AEW, and this is something nobody really talked about tonight, and I thought it was wonderful. AEW darkened the arena, so you didn't see loads and loads and loads of empty chairs. WWE, for some reason, last week thought that it was going to emphasize a little bit more by showing, dozens of empty chairs. Tonight, they darkened the lights in the back. They changed the camera angle a little bit to really focus on the ring itself and not the background. And I thought the presentation today was much better than last week.
Oh, definitely. I thought same thing too. I thought the opening was good. I thought it was improved. It wasn't as good as AEW. The AEW guys had the guys out there cheering and booing and catcalling or whatever. That was fun because I finally got to see that the other day. And I told you I always give credit if it's a good show. It was a good show. But tonight was a improved WWE. Not that much improvement, but an improvement nonetheless. I don't. Again, they weren't copying anybody. They just improved what they lacked last week. That's all.
Yeah. Now, they opened up with Paul Heyman in the ring with Brock Lesnar, and Paul Heyman is great on the mic. I brought this up before. If you look at Paul Heyman promos with Brock Lesnar from 5-6 years ago, it's the same shit. Just because you add douching or add an extra word here and there, it doesn't really make it much different.
Yeah,
but
I'm a bitch again. Yeah. Bitch.
Yeah, but it's interesting. But something I picked up on today, I don't know if you feel the same way. I'm not saying I'm going to be right, but if anybody remembers last week's show that we did, and even the Friday before, I said that WWE should pre-record a lot of WrestleMania. This way they could brawl in the parking lot. They could brawl in the kitchen. They could just get very creative. They could edit. They could really tweak things instead of doing it live. And that's pretty much what they are doing. They are taping a lot of WrestleMania this week, believe it or not. But something I was thinking about tonight, they're really only supposed to have around 10 people, so to speak, in any area, like group of 10.
Right.
Now, that doesn't mean that some wrestlers can't wait at the hotel and then show up later or this and that. So by them recording a lot of this stuff beforehand, they only need to have the necessary people there to record those particular segments. So what I was thinking tonight is, and again, I'm not saying that this is going to happen, but it's just an idea that I think actually would be a good idea for WWE. Think there's any possibility that Saturday, April 4th, would be pretty much just the Raw roster, and then on Saturday or Sunday, April 5th, that is primarily just the SmackDown roster, because you have 2 to 3 announcers, commentators for each brand. And if it's going to be live, sure, they do pre-recorded stuff. You could switch the announcers during the thing, but the fact is all 5 announcers would still be there. So I'm wondering if Saturday night is pretty much just Raw and Sunday night is pretty much just SmackDown. I mean, other than that, it makes no sense why you would divide it up into 2 nights.
No, again, listen, I was hoping that WrestleMania doesn't even happen anymore. I kind of changed my mind over the last. You have a lot of time to think when you don't have anything to do. Literally, I'm not being sarcastic saying that. I'm serious. I was like thinking about this. And I was kind of hoping they would just scrap this, Anthony, and just live to fight another day down the road. I believe things will resume. I'm looking at this 4 to 9 months. We'll be in this for the rest of the year. Things are canceled till next January, which is bullshit, by the way. President wants everybody to go back to work in 2 weeks, by the way. But again, notwithstanding that, and there are tours being booked now for October, November. So there's a lot of misinformation out there. WrestleMania can happen another time. I'm not liking this anymore. The 2 nights spread out, the taped in advance, the no audience. I don't know how much more I can take, even as a podcaster. I don't know what your thoughts are on this. I'm struggling to find, again, props for trying to entertain us. Absolutely. I love wrestling. I always will, whether I'm on a podcast or not. I'm a wrestling fan for life, no doubt. But this is hard. And again, I don't know. I just wish they would just make a super show in the summer, or say, fuck it, put it in October. We never have a big thing in October. I don't understand why this can't be done. I don't understand it. And more, it looks like a thumbs down across the boards. I don't know anybody who's looking forward to it, but if they're going to go through with it, let's just get this over with already, I feel like. And again, it's a sad state of affairs, what's going on, but I can't, it's hard watching this. I mean, you don't find this to be a struggle? I mean, even people were saying tonight, thanks for watching this, Anthony, Kevin, because I'm just going to listen to your wrap-up. I'm not watching it at all. And I had so many people write that. It's kind of sad, though.
See, I understand, and again, this kind of goes with what I said a week and a half ago. I understand Edge doing an interview recently and saying, look, we just want to get everybody's mind off of stuff for a couple of hours, and if we could do that, then, we did our job and this and that. And although a wonderful thing to say, there are lots of sports players out there that want to do the same fucking thing. There are a lot of actors and actresses that want to do the same fucking thing as you, Edge, right now. But they are abiding by the guidelines and the recommendations and the health. I mean, look, if you walk around and nobody's within 10 feet of you and you have a mask on and gloves, the chances of you infecting anyone is almost slim to none. But yet all these other places canceled their stuff not to take a chance. And, unless all of these wrestlers, I mean, my God, you just had Undertaker in a pool with a fucking tiger and his wife and this and that. Yeah. I'm sure they don't mingle with the regular folk where they might catch it from someone else. But, you got Bertha the maid, or you got this person, or, Raphael, the tiger handler, and this and that. I mean, they're not being locked up in solitary confinement for 2, 3, 4 weeks leading up to this. They're commingling with people. I mean, it's just, I understand you want to entertain, but there's a lot of other people out there that want to entertain also, but understand that they can't right now. And the thing is like, I look at this card on paper, and we have all the matches pretty much on paper, and we'll go over it a little bit later. But I look at this card up and down. It makes Saudi Arabia look like WrestleMania.
It does, yeah.
I mean, Aleister Black versus Lashley, with all due respect, the fuck wants to see that? Seriously. I mean,
jeez.
They just, and again, let's also remember that some people are not appearing because they don't feel comfortable traveling.
Yep.
I don't want to put any names because some people could change their mind between now and WrestleMania, but I guess I could bring this up right now. Dana Brooke has been pulled from that match. Now, it's not a loss, a major loss or anything like that. We don't know if she was pulled because she feels uncomfortable showing up there. I don't remember seeing her in the last 2 weeks in Florida. Maybe she changed her mind. Maybe she doesn't feel well. I don't know. But this card, I brought up this idea on Friday. Got a lot of great feedback, a lot of PMs and emails on it. And I think especially right now that these Raws and Smackdowns, it's smoke and mirrors, man. You're airing matches 30 minutes. Ciampa and Gargano went a fucking hour and 20 minutes last week. Now they got to answer to Triple H. How long is this shit going to be? Then they show, the best was Friday. They're showing Wyatt versus Cena, only to show it on ESPN, not even 2 days later. It's like, so my idea was they record everything for WrestleMania this week and next week, but instead of airing it April 4th and April 5th, they ain't no fucking commitments. It's the network. It's the WWE network. They don't have to answer to pay-per-view companies. It's the WWE network. They should have recorded all of WrestleMania and air it on Raw, on SmackDown, and even do some NXT in place of TakeOver that's not going down either. Air that during NXT. They could have had Goldberg versus Roman Reigns, record that match, air it on SmackDown 2 Fridays from now. You want to put some TakeOver stuff in there, air that on NXT. I think the fans out there would love to see, going up against AEW, would love to see those NXT TakeOver matches airing on Wednesday, then airing on a WrestleMania weekend. It's not like a national holiday that, oh my God, if they change their mind and don't do it April 4th, April 5th, they're done. The stock is going to plummet. They could record all this stuff still. Look what they're giving us on Monday night. Nothing against Cena versus Rollins versus Lesnar, but that's not even a fucking WrestleMania match. It was from the Royal Rumble.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, what was the purpose of airing that tonight? You mean to tell me that the fans would not rather have maybe the Lesnar-McIntyre match be recorded and then main event Raw Monday, April 6th? They should have just squashed April 4th, squashed April 5th, record everything, and for the 2 weeks, for the week of April 6th and the week of April 13th, you air all of the WrestleMania matches on Raw, SmackDown. And the sad thing about it is we'll probably see a lot of this shit replayed the following week. But you air it during those nights, I think it would have been much better received from the fans. And not only that, you're getting some advertising revenue on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday night. It's kind of nice for the advertisers knowing that they're buying advertising time and they're going to feature WrestleMania matches airing first time premiere than giving us a fucking replay of a match from 6-7 years ago.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I mean, do you like that idea, or you think it's it's just not beneficial for WWE?
No, I think people want something to look forward to. So that's where everyone's missing the boat on. Is that now instant gratification or something so on the horizon that people can reach out and touch it, but not if it's half-assed, not if it's not all the way that it should be. Again, I don't know what the problem is of rescheduling it for the fall, which are the major events. I'm in the concert business. I'm seeing now major tours are being rebooked for October, November, December. I saw a plethora of them listed today, and I know agents who are getting to work on them within the next week or two. They're not doing that at random. Somebody is obviously telling them, no, it's going to be okay. Then stop booking it. There's again, some people get the word. It's nothing official, but I do not believe for a fucking second that we're all done for the rest of the year and nothing's going to happen. I don't believe that for a fucking minute. First of all, China is back on the road to recovery. So is Japan. They had their biggest problems in the month of February. We're 1 month behind. So why the fuck would America be shut down for 9 months?
I'm telling you,
doesn't make any sense.
Remember what I said last week? I really feel that 2 weeks is what we need in the United States, and
Yes,
I think after 2 weeks, I said it last week, I'm going to stick to it. I think what's going to happen is by next week, they're going to see, if there's any other hotbeds, and they're going to tell certain people you could go back to work, but under certain conditions. Maybe you have to wear a mask. Maybe you have to wear gloves. Maybe, you have to do this. I mean, I don't know, but I do believe that 2 weeks from now, I think you will have a decent number of people back to work, just being extra careful. But I totally agree with you. I mean, it's just, you realize that the WWE stock has dropped over $60 a share, maybe $65 a share since WrestleMania last year. And it's like, everything that's coming out of WWE seems negative. Even when we were talking about the financials that, all this revenue is down, we'll increase ticket prices. It only goes so far, but it doesn't hide the fact that the attendances are going down and down and down and down. And this WrestleMania, like WrestleMania is always supposed, like if you look at it as sports seasons, NBA, baseball, whatever it is, WrestleMania, like the night after WrestleMania is supposed to start the new season. And then that season culminates with the following WrestleMania. And it feels like ever since the end of that main event from WrestleMania last year, where things did not end the way WWE really wanted it, and then you have the stock going down and all this negative shit and them losing crazy loads of money and the financials are going down and, you don't have no more Saudi and Fox, big announcements to jack that price back up in the stock market. And this WrestleMania kind of like, if you really want to be an asshole about it, I'm not saying you, but I'm saying in general, this WrestleMania is probably perfect for what has transpired in the last 11 and a half months for the WWE corporation. This WrestleMania, the way it's being given half-assed, the way that everybody else is respecting the health risk. You see, people need to understand something, and this is just an opinion. We're an opinion show. We do cover news, but it's mostly opinion. People need to understand something. It's very, like when you have like Danny DeVito and you have other actors and De Niro and others that are telling everybody, look, please stay indoors. Be careful. Don't be around people. Wait a couple of weeks. Don't go to the beaches. Don't go this. Don't go there. Don't go this. And then you have WWE wrestlers that are pretty much doing 24/7 title changes on a sidewalk and, advertising they're going to do a graveyard match or a boneyard match. And it's like everybody else, don't try this at home. This is where WrestleMania is. Don't follow what we're doing, because they're going against what everybody else is telling you not to do. Right. So, again, I'm not trying to be a jerk because I am a wrestling fan, and I know those wrestlers are going to bust their ass. But Jesus Christ, there are so many other people. There's performers. They all want to do what they want to do, but they understand that for the time being, they have to sacrifice like everybody else and wait. Stop acting like they're the emotional Band-Aid for the world. They're not bigger than coronavirus.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, that's actually what you just said is kind of a good phrase. They're not the emotional Band-Aid. I think they are for some reason, but again, I don't know who, I guess people are consulting with different people and stuff. And that's why certain agencies feel confident, because again, I know some major agencies and they wouldn't rebook tours if they didn't get the word that it would not be canceled again, because they would surely be finished, Anthony, in this business. They would go out of business. If this happens again and they book a tour for October, big tours, I'm talking major bands, and these tours get canceled again, everyone is finished. I mean, literally. So this is going to be very calculated. So I don't know how the WWE doesn't have word where someone's saying, listen, full, book WrestleMania again. Well, we can't do that. We have to I can't picture them go, no, we have to entertain the fans now. They need us. I don't know what this is, because clearly they're going to lose money. So this is a real weird thing. I mean, again, why don't they just call it a different show or something like that, or just put on a series of matches?
Super show.
Super show specials.
WrestleMania Raw. WrestleMania Smackdown.
Raw. Like
WrestleMania NXT.
I like that. WWE, you listening here? I like that. Some sort of theme it out where it's related to WrestleMania, but the main show, the WrestleMania that you guys expect, all the big things, the whole big to do, that's down the road. 6 months from now, we're going to have WrestleMania. WrestleMania will go on. Here's a little something to wet your whistle for now. Why can't they do that? I don't understand. There's nothing's holding them back from doing that but their own selves.
I agree. Well, you know what? I mean, I blame this also on DeSantis in Florida, because they did not drop the hammer as hard as other states.
No, they dumped it in. Didn't they say WWE needs to make their own decision or something like that?
Yeah, I mean that was early on, but even after that, I mean, you see the appearance of spring break and those morons, and news came out that some people who were on that spring break caught coronavirus, and I'm thinking to myself, oh my God, could you imagine if they went ahead and again, as disturbing as it is, and I'm sorry for saying this, but, I'm not going to say any individual conventions or promotions that were all going to be in Tampa as well, but a lot of them were hoping that WrestleMania wasn't canceled. And again, I don't mean to sound like an asshole, but I tell it straight out, whether people like it or not. Look at some of the conventions and some of the promotions that were going to perform in Tampa. And all they kept tweeting is, we have to see what happens with Mania. We have to see what happens if Florida cancels it. If Florida cancels it, then we can claim insurance. And hopefully, Mania doesn't cancel that. Never once did you hear any of these people saying, look, this coronavirus is too fucking crazy, man. Whether it's on or it's not, we gotta. It was all about money. Whether it was a tiny indie fed or it was WWE, at the end of the day, everybody cared about their fucking money. I mean, people were hoping that WWE would not cancel. Now, imagine if it didn't cancel and you got these same nitwits and you got... let me just remind everybody, I also criticized AEW for still going ahead as well. But the difference is AEW is not doing a pay-per-view. As I talked about on Friday, they did postpone Blood and Guts. They have a small group of people, and they're really adhering to this 10-person rule a lot more than what WWE's trying to be cute with it. Record something here, record something there. I mean, look tonight. When you look at the Street Profits, and you look at fucking Andrade and Garza, and you look at, Alexander, and we'll talk about the match now, but you look right there, and you take the announcers and the referee and the camera guy, that's over 10 right there.
Yeah, they might even exceed 10. They might even be 11.
Yeah.
12. Yeah.
So, anyway, I guess we could go back to Raw a little bit, and then we'll get into some of these matches, and then we'll talk about the Benoit Vice.
Yes.
And the funny thing is that it hasn't necessarily premiered yet on Vice. I think that's tomorrow. But
so a little spoiler advance alert. But
you'll give your overall view on it, and I'll tell everybody why I didn't like it.
Yeah, everyone knows the story, but we'll give you a little. I'll try and keep out anything too, buzzworthy to see tomorrow. I don't want to ruin it for anybody, but again, it's a review, so just take it as it comes.
So we talked about Lesnar and Heyman already, and this is the site, hype up the match with McIntyre. It almost makes me feel like there's no way McIntyre is winning this for the simple reason it's got to be a bullshit finish, because McIntyre winning his belt and not being able to climb the rope and soak in the cheers, that pop from Royal Rumble, just think about that. They replayed that pop from the crowd so many times of McIntyre eliminating Lesnar. And if he wins the belt, he climbs the rope and there's no pop at all. You know what I mean? As much as you want to entertain people like that, just picture that visual. That's why I'm almost convinced that Lesnar either wins or gets disqualified, or it's going to be some bullshit finish to try to just milk this for another month. But after all of that hype, we had the match with Rollins, Cena, and Lesnar from Royal Rumble 2015. So really nothing to cover there. I mean, we covered that 5 years ago. They then had Gallows and Anderson and AJ Styles come out, cutting a promo on The Undertaker, showing the video of Undertaker in the pool with Michelle McCool and the Tiger, just making fun of him. And then AJ Styles challenges him to a boneyard match. Now, with all due respect to people out there, I saw, this is what I mean by tweet fucking. All right. I saw so many people writing, what in the hell is a boneyard? What the hell is a boneyard? Did he mean graveyard? And why would you not just do a Google search under the word boneyard, and then you see, oh, it's another term for a cemetery. Oh, that's where people like leave their bones and stuff like that. But it's like people tweet it anyway because they need to spark a conversation off of it. If you really wanted to know what it is, here's the answer, google.com. It's a graveyard. So they're going to have some type of a graveyard match. Don't know if it's going to be on Undertaker's property. It would be, you would think with the Undertaker's history that somewhere on his property, he probably has like fake tombstones and graves. And, if I was the Undertaker for 30 years and I was a rich man and I owned property, I probably would have, did something to pay tribute to my gimmick. Wouldn't be surprised if he's got a little mini faux cemetery somewhere in his yard,
See that would be fun to see something like that. Like that I could deal with, some sort of outside. Even the little snippet with Killings and Riddick Moss tonight was, 30 seconds, but it was fun. Something like that I can get into. I can get into AJ going on Undertaker's property and doing something like they did with, if you remember, with what was that, DK and the Hardys, that's some kind of thing like that. That would be nice.
Final deletion.
The final deletion. I'd like that. That would be cool. Why not? That would be a lot of fun. And he could be the American Badass. I don't think he's going to be the dead man. He's probably going to be like a big evil type of thing, and that's fine. The character was over. It's not like it was some embarrassment in his career. And that's more Mark Calloway anyway, and they continue to use that name. So I'm thinking he's going to be Mark, and that's what Mark is like at home. So, and maybe Michelle can get involved and hit him over the head with a shovel or something. So, you know what I'm saying? They can have some fun with that. I wouldn't mind seeing that, TT.
And you know what? When Undertaker, after he had that match with Roman Reigns at Mania, that was very embarrassing. He left his outfit in the middle of the ring. Then when we found out that he was returning, I remember everybody and their mother, including us, saying, you know what, Taker, come back as American Badass. Brawl.
Yeah, exactly. Enough for the dead.
Brawl.
Exactly.
You don't need to leave your feet like you used to. I have been saying this for two plus years now. Undertaker, when he's on the ground, looks fine. He's doing the punches and this and that. He could even do the kick. He's fine. But anything that requires him to push off of his legs, that's where he runs into trouble. So him having, I know a lot of people don't like that they keep humanizing Undertaker more. I've been saying that for years. WWE is going to humanize him. And this has been going on for a while. I think that's the best way to have this match with AJ Styles, because the more they try to humanize The Undertaker, it's more the reason why The Undertaker is going to be the fucking husband, the American Badass, to beat the shit out of this guy that keeps talking about me and my wife. You know what I mean? It's not about Paul Bearer in an urn right now. It's about his marriage, talking about him wearing, undergarments like the old people do, like girdles. I think that's what AJ Styles was going for earlier. Like they have those body shape T-shirts that you wear, and honestly, I think Undertaker does wear that. It's like the spandex tank top that makes everything look a little bit tighter than what it is. Yep. So they're trying to play off on a little bit of reality, and I think that's why Undertaker has to be the badass and beats the fuck out of AJ Styles. Plus, the match could go a lot longer. By them just brawling, and it's pre-recorded.
I like that idea. I think that's something that you know, anybody can get into. Like I says, not copy, you know, deletion, but something of that nature. Especially with Undertaker, you can do anything. Maybe Undertaker could set traps on his property for Carl Anderson, and you know, if the writers should have some creative time here. So even have involve Anderson and Gallows in this, and they can get trapped up, or maybe Michelle McCool can trap them up. Because they're bringing up her name so much. You know, she's got to make an appearance, don't you think, DT, in this whole thing?
Oh, yeah,
yeah, she's going to make an appearance.
And there's another thing, too. Doesn't he live in Texas?
Yeah, he lives in Texas.
Texas is not that bad right now with coronavirus. So I don't think the restrictions are as severe as Florida or New York. So they could have AJ Styles go to Undertaker's backyard, and technically they're not violating anything because the rules are a lot more laxed in Texas than it is in Florida.
True, and they wouldn't need some huge crew over there to film that.
Right.
So again, especially if it's on private property, that could be a whole nother thing. Again, they have the time, the creative for this. I mean, listen, they'd have to scramble now if they didn't figure it out already. It's 2 weeks. It's next week. So, you know, again, I would hope that they would at least put something into stuff like that, put something into the Randy Orton. You know, it seems to me, DT, that those are the probably saving graces of the old grizzled veterans, Orton, Edge, AJ, Undertaker. I think those are the matches that are going to be the best.
Believe it or not, I kind of feel that way too. I think Undertaker, as ridiculous as this may sound to some people, I think Undertaker, AJ Styles, and Edge, Randy Orton are going to be the two best matches of the weekend. Sure, we'll have Daniel Bryan tear it up. We'll have Sami Zayn tear it up. But I'm talking about entertainment purposes. And Joe Punches asks, would it be in pre-recorded? Are we going to get more intimate, dramatic matches with the camera work? Absolutely. Yeah, that's the beautiful thing. They record this 4 or 5 days in advance, especially if they do it in Texas or Georgia, wherever it is. You know, they can record something, edit it, do a retake, you know, splice it in, different camera shot. There's a million things you could do with it pre-recorded. And look, again, I'm not taking credit for it because I know I'm not the only person who thought this last week, but I said it on this show last Monday. They should pre-record almost everything because, especially with these gimmick matches, it gives them so much more creative freedom than doing it live. It's why I was so ecstatic that AEW canceled Blood and Guts, because the creativity that they cannot do, number one, because there's no live crowd. Number two, because they're in such a limited area. Number three, because of the staff that cannot be there. You know, they said, you know, we're going to do it right or we're not going to do it at all. So that's why I think those two matches may end up being the most entertaining matches of the night. Because again, you know, as much as people out there might think sometimes the crowds get a little bit goofy, but I'm sorry, man. You know, you look at the Rollins-Cena-Lesnar match tonight, although to me it was like made almost no sense to put that on tonight, especially it's not a Mania match. The crowd made it fun. The crowd pop, you know, it's just that excitement, you know, carries off through the TV. And we're not going to get any of that. So if you have a street fight and they're brawling in the back, I mean, you go back to the Attitude Era when they would have hardcore matches in the back, you would hear a little bit of the crowd in the background, but 90% of the volume that you heard was the back. So when you watch some of these brawls, the Boneyard match or the street fight, it's at some points you're not even going to remember that it's an empty arena, because those backstage brawls, the audio is usually focused on the backstage area anyway.
Yeah, that's true. And you know, it's funny. One of my favorite things, and I always forget, not really always forget, but I'm trying to say, you know, they did it so good with that. The empty arena match with Rock and Mankind which was fucking fantastic.
Sure.
That was fantastic match. I don't see that enough. I actually want to go back and see it. I haven't seen it in years, but that's a good example of, so this can be done. It's just that the whole card is going to be like that. It's a little bit different when it's a specialty match.
Yeah.
You know,
that's why I think if Raw is mostly Saturday and SmackDown is mostly Sunday, they need a match like that for Sunday. You know, again, I don't think they actually are going to do that format. They see, that's the thing. They don't need to have Orton and Edge air on Saturday. If it's pre-recorded, they could just air it on Sunday, because the thing is, if you have two street fights, technically street fights, outside the ring where they could brawl anywhere, and they both happen on the Saturday night, you know, then the Sunday, it's like you got to pre-record some stuff. So if everything is just in the ring with no crowd, it's gonna start to get tiring after, you understand what I'm saying? It's going to get tiring very quickly. They got to mix it up a little bit. That's the only thing that's stopping me from thinking that they would have all Raw on Saturday and SmackDown on Sunday. They got to pace it right.
That'll make the most sense. I mean, how many, what was it going to be, 3 hours one night, 3 hours the other, or 4 and 4?
Well, it starts at 7 both nights. You know, I can't see this going 8 hours. That's just sick. You know, there's no commercial breaks.
That is sick.
That's just sick. I mean, right now, I mean, we'll get into the matches later, but I'm counting them up right now. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. And I would think they'll probably add one. So you're talking 6 matches a night, let's say. That can't be more than 3 hours. In fact, I got news for you. If it starts at 7 o'clock, I'd be shocked if it ends past 10 each night.
Yeah.
So, getting back to Raw tonight. By the way, I enjoyed the little bit extra of Charlie Caruso today.
Oh yeah.
Charlie Caruso looking great as always. But
she was looking good, and that interview with Shayna was good. I saw Mish put something up about that and saying this is how you do it, or they did it a lot better this week doing it in this format. Becky coming out and attacking her, but that was good in the way they darkened it and the way they kind of blocked out certain things which they had too much light on last week. They made corrections this week, and again, whatever you think AEW influence it. No, it's WWE. I think knows how to do stuff. They sometimes just drop the ball on doing it. You know what I mean? It's like they know what they're doing. They just get lackadaisical sometimes, and that happens to the best of everybody. But it was good, and again, that was a good, candid interview. And then Becky coming out and making the attack. That was the way to do it, to build it up. You know, they're even now. They both attacked each other several times, and this is the way to do it. So I mean, again, I didn't hate Raw tonight. You know, it's weird, thumbs up, thumbs down, or 1 out of 10. It was watchable. How about I just say that? I don't even want to give it a rating, DT, and we'll cover still a little bit more ground on it, but because it was some clips and showing matches from the Cena, Rollins, Lesnar 3-way match, and of course the what else did they show? The Charlotte versus Asuka match from 2018. Which we've all seen already, but they were good enough to watch again. I didn't mind watching it again. So it was more of a watchable show tonight. I'll just say that much.
The funny thing is, I said this in the past, just joking around, that Shayna Baszler looks like, and I've brought this up before, she looks like a child who's been kidnapped for like 10, 15 years, and you put like an age composite of what that person looks like later on, but you keep some of the baby features in there. I realized tonight why I say that also. You look at Shayna Baszler's teeth up close, her 2 front teeth look like baby teeth. You know when they have that extra enlarged front teeth that they fall out? Her 2 top front teeth look like baby teeth.
That is true.
You know, and I'm saying that joking around. I have nothing against Shayna Baszler at all. I like her character. I think she was unfairly put in an unfair position with that match with Kairi Sane, because those two had a great match at TakeOver, and what they tried to do on Raw kind of, made it shungada for both of them. But,
Exactly.
I joked last week, I don't know if WWE wants to spend that kind of money allowing this, but almost makes me feel like Shayna Baszler's got to destroy Becky Lynch's truck next week.
Yeah, I would think so. I would think that's why they brought it in, unless this is going to be a new thing for her. But it seems very forced, and I don't like it personally. It just doesn't register with me at all. Becky driving a truck, but Shayna fucking it up with a baseball bat or something, that I could see.
Yeah.
So if there's a means to an end with that, and that was brought out for reasons, because Shayna can go fuck it up next week, especially after Becky jumped her tonight. So now Shayna's got to give her a receipt next week. And she can't just jump her again and bite her again. She's got to do something extreme. So you're right, DT. I like the whole bat to the truck thing or something like that.
Yeah,
that should be good.
I think the truck's got to be brought in next week. And they could pre-record that as well.
Yeah.
Want to shout out our new and returning patrons, Yami J, Lenny Beebe, Anthony Arado, Brian Walden, Brian, Derek Little, Ismail Garay, and Iero. So shout out to all of them. Welcome back. And think tomorrow you have what, Dark Chronicles tomorrow?
KNT Chronicles.
Oh, KNT Chronicles, yes.
Yeah, it takes getting used to. 8:15 tomorrow on Discord.
10:15.
Oh, sorry, 10:15. I'm 8:15 on solo. 10:15 tomorrow night with Trez, and sign up today at Don Tony's Patreon. Don Tony.
Getting back to Raw, we had Selena Vega in the corner of Andrade and Angel Garza, who we found out is getting a shot at the tag titles, which we'll talk about that aspect in a second. Taking on Ricochet and Cedric Alexander today. Match was fine. I agree with everybody else out there that the finish was botched. Andrade, and this is not the first time Andrade is connected that way in a match. Don't know if it was Andrade's fault or Cedric's fault, but Cedric got clocked in the head. Some people worried about him possibly being concussed. They showed it in slow motion online, and you see that spit flying everywhere, and I'm saying to myself, coronavirus. But the referee went to count, and the referee was stopping at 3, but Cedric's shoulders were still down. So he did like 1, 2, stopped, and then did almost like a 4 count, like Bundy with the 5 count. But the referee just, it was a very sloppy finish. You hope that Cedric Alexander was fine, but the match, it was good. I mean, it was a little bit longer than you expected, just to eat up time. Street Profits were on commentary. What'd you think of that match, the tag match?
I thought it was okay. I mean, I thought it was, I thought it was decent. It's good to see Cedric Alexander. I mean, obviously the deep push is obvious. 6 months ago, you would have thought the world for this guy. Now he's back to use him when you got to. I thought it was a pretty good match. I mean, again, it's still taking some getting used to, week 2 with no crowd and with stuff like that and with quick moves and stuff like that. You expect the crowd reaction, some of the flash. But it was good. It was decent. Again, it was a watchable show. I didn't find myself drifting in and out, looking at the clock to start the podcast like I was last week. Wanted to rush it just to be over with. I was watchable. It was cool. But again, I just can't wait for crowds to come back at this point, DT. It's, I'll do what I have to be as positive as I can with the no crowd thing, because this is the world we live in at the moment. But I cannot wait for the crowds to come back, dude. I can't wait. I miss the crowds. I will never say to the crowds, by the way, this is awesome. I will never make fun of it again. I look forward to the "this is awesome" chants, and what I used to shit on it all the time, and now I miss the crowd so much.
Is it safe to say that the Viking Raiders don't want to be in Florida right now? I mean, right. Even if they set up some faux pas between Andrade and Hector Garza, Angel Garza, what am I saying? And maybe Angel ends up challenging Andrade. I guess Andrade's title's not being defended at Mania. But why are they getting the title shot?
Default.
Yeah, I did think that's the answer. I think they just don't have another tag team that really wants to go to Florida to get a shot. I mean,
we have a little problem. Nobody wants to go. Oh man. Well, that's why. Do you think that's why we saw some of these enhancement guys tonight in some of the singles matches because they couldn't get anybody?
Yeah. Well, you want to know something? Shane Thorne and Brendan Vink, who took on the Street Profits, they're from NXT. And they've actually, they've been featured quite a bit. I mean, look, they're treated as enhancement talent. They're not that bad. But I personally think that the Street Profits match, I think originally WWE may not have wanted to have them in a match because even though they're NXT guys, Street Profits, to go that long against them, to me, it just felt like, why are they fighting NXT guys? Like I said last week, it would have been cool if we had a special night where it's like Raw versus NXT, not like Survivor Series, but that just felt like it was just thrown together. It did not feel that way. That match felt like it was not the original plan for Raw tonight. And I guess we could, since we brought it up, Street Profits taking on Shane Thorne and Brendan Vink, it was an okay match. Just felt like, again, here's a match, Andrade and Garza getting a title shot when Andrade's the champion already, and he just came back from a wellness violation. And it's, unless there's dissension, there's a faux pas, because I personally think there's no way Street Profits are losing it now. Unless there's something that goes wrong with the Latinos and this leads to maybe a friendly challenge, or Garza challenges Andrade. I'm not saying at Mania, but maybe on a future upcoming show. To me, you shouldn't even have the Street Profits defending the titles at Mania, in my opinion. Let them be a host with Gronk.
Yeah, I would rather see them do that and have Andrade defend his title. I mean, that title to not be defended is ridiculous.
What do you think about this whole thing with Gronk, being in WWE now and being the guest host?
I didn't watch the show when it aired on Friday. I watched it on Saturday because I just got caught up on the phone and was bullshitting with people on Friday. But then I saw it on Saturday and I saw him come down and the music and everything. And I said, oh, it's a football player version of the Miz. That's really what I see him as, like douchebaggy, no offense, anybody's a fan of his from football, but he's a douchebag. I think you guys know that, even who like him, he comes off douchebag. So does the Miz. I think these guys who are like that know that about themselves. Again, I'm all for bringing up Matt Riddle and bringing up some of these other guys, in NXT, then put the gas behind another celebrity who's coming in. Obviously, look what happened with Cain Velasquez. Would you say that was a flop, or it's to be determined? It's too early to tell. But Gronk is a bigger star, obviously, than Cain Velasquez. He's a much bigger star.
Got charisma.
He's got charisma. He's got charisma, but humping the turnbuckle and the ridiculous music, it just reminds me of a version of the Miz. When I saw him come down, I said that's early Mike Mizanin. That's what I thought.
I wouldn't even have Cain Velasquez host an 8-year-old's birthday party. He's got no charisma at all. I mean, maybe for Ray's nephew or somebody like that, but Gronk, look, Gronk, I never liked him as a football player because I never liked the Patriots. Yeah. He comes off as a genuinely likable guy, and he is a wrestling fan, which I will always have that respect for. I know this is a really bad comparison, but I don't get Miz vibes from him. You know what vibes I get from him? Yeah. And please, I'm not trying to compare the careers for everyone out there. And I know immediately when I say this name, people are going to think of Cena. But I get the same vibes that I got of Vanilla Ice in 1990. There's this like really good looking, charismatic guy. And at some point in 1990, Vanilla Ice actually was popular. Then it came off that this guy was just like the Jersey Shore fuck that you just wanted to get punched in the mouth. Like you just wanted to see on late night news that he got beat up in a bar.
Right,
that was
exactly.
Or I got a Vanilla Ice at that time. And look, years later, he sold real estate, and I actually liked that show. But Gronk, I don't dislike him, but there's just something about him that's, it's just like, get the fuck out of here. You know what I mean? Like there's something about him that I think right now it's at a crossroads. For the most part, the feedback I've been seeing online has been negative. So I think either I think the more he brings up him being a lifelong wrestling fan, I think will help him get more accepted by fans. But if people need to understand something. No disrespect to Mojo Rawley, but them two might be buddies, and them two might, like butt chests and go, he ain't hype. Just because he clicks with Mojo Rawley doesn't mean that we find it entertaining. Sorry, but Mojo Rawley, WWE's fault, has been a failure. Yeah. So he's bouncing around and he pushes over Corbin. Like, I'm not all of a sudden liking Mojo Rawley. It's not like he's hanging out with some really over cool guy that everybody likes in the WWE or as far as fans go. Right. Mojo Rawley. Like, suddenly he's cool. He's a nice guy. So I think Gronk, it's going to go one of two ways. I mean, and yeah, common sense would go one of two ways, but I'm fearing that it's going to go quickly. And once that snowball starts building, that people can't stand them, either WWE will have to turn them both into asshole heels, or bite the bullet.
Well, I think that's the whole thing, and they'll have to turn him heel. I mean, he comes in with a ready-made nickname, which is good. They don't have to come up with anything from Gronk. And he's got his shtick, the way he talks and acts and dances and stuff. He did that during interviews when he was playing football. So he's basically turning it up a notch for wrestling. So they don't really have to develop a character from him. He is a character. That's the whole thing. Cain Velasquez isn't a character. That's his problem. He has no charisma. Gronk has charisma. I'll give him that. He has that gift of gab. He's got it, but I don't know if that it transfers to wrestling. But I definitely see heel. I could see the booze because I could just see it because he's going to come off a little bit too, again, I hate to overuse the word, douchebaggy. And then people are going to be like, I can't, fuck this guy. But then again, the booze might generate a nice heel run for him. Unless he is like, no, I don't want to be a heel because I want to sell merch. But even though we all know heels sell merch too, it's not like the old days where like Bret Hart didn't want to go heel because it's like, it's going to cut my merch in half. Like he even talked about it on the Austin show back then. You didn't want to go heel in the early 90s before the Attitude Era came in. Nobody wanted to be heel, cut into merch money. So Gronk can go heel. I don't think he'd fight them on it unless he was like, no, I don't want to be a bad guy. That's the only thing I could see throw a wrench in the plans. But that guy is natural heel. I could just see, especially the male contingency. Even if you're a football fan, you're going to start booing him because you're going to get tired of the dancing and the shtick, and you're going to be like, this guy's an a-hole. But you might say he's an a-hole, but I'll like him if he's a heel. Like I can get into him being a bad guy, see him get his ass kicked, but he can't be a babyface, DT. I don't see it. It'll last. It'll be a very brief babyface run.
Yeah, we'll see. But just for people that are asking, number one, I got shorts on right now, so I'm not going to do it. Number two, Friday, Mitch and I are going to try to raise some money for charity, and we're going to publicly post a donation to COVID-19 relief. But people want to contribute some money to charity Friday, I will do the Gronk dance on video.
Oh, good Lord.
And I won't rehearse first, so I come off looking like an absolute imbecile. But for tonight, ain't happening. I don't know. People are asking if he could wrestle. Look, you're a lifelong wrestling fan. Mm-hmm. There's probably been times where you have DDT'd your friend like in your basement, or maybe like jumped off of a ladder onto someone. You know what I mean? So I wouldn't be surprised if he could do a couple of moves, but let's see if we hear that he's training. Right now, obviously, it's a little difficult with the coronavirus, but let's see in a couple of months from now if he starts training. That's another thing too, Kev. I think if he starts training at the Performance Center and we start hearing that he is busting his ass trying to learn, I think that will gain a lot of respect from fans, saying, yeah, he comes off a little, like a dick, but you know what? He really is taking this seriously, and I think that would win a lot of fans over. But if WWE hired him to be like a celebrity, to get the ESPN and the Fox rub and the attention outside, and he's basically doing street profit, like a white street profit, just a cocky shtick, I think and he's not training and he's not taking it seriously and just doing shoulder tackles, fans will turn on him in a second.
I agree. It's a different time than when they had Kevin Green and WCW and Mongo and stuff like that, and you can be a half-ass wrestler and get away with it. You can't do that today. The fans are too on your ass. They're on the ass of people who trained for 5 years in NXT. They're not going to be on the ass. They're not giving a wrestling fans don't give a pass to anybody anymore, DT. You notice that? They don't give a pass to anybody. So, again, the initial thing, because, there's no crowd right now, so we can't even tell how Gronk would be received. We're just assuming, because he's a very famous man, how the crowd's going to be. Maybe initially, oh, yeah, Gronk, oh, yeah, great, whatever. But within a couple of weeks, if he's not doing anything, again, the fans will be brutal, I think. And especially online, forget it, they're already brutal online. In the crowd, it'll transfer. It always transfers. So, again, I don't see like little kids, oh, yeah, Gronk, like, unless you're a Patriots fan. If you're a little kid, you're going to like him, unless you're like a little football mark. But other than that, I don't see it, But I understand why they hired him. That I get. The business aspect of it, I totally get, especially now. I totally get it with ESPN and wanting to get the coverage that they need. And again, DT, like you said, kind of be the Band-Aid, emotional Band-Aid. Say, look, we're hiring other people to even entertain people. We hired Gronk, one of the most entertaining guys in the NFL. So I know why they did it, but if he's going to be one of the boys, he's going to have to put in the time. Yeah, he doesn't have to be Kurt Angle, but he's got to be halfway decent.
We had Aleister Black, 1 minute match with Leon Ruff. Now, for those that don't know, Leon Ruff actually is pretty talented. He's wrestled in Evolve.
I didn't know who he was. Yeah, I didn't know.
He wrestled in Evolve, and he's got some pretty good ability. Unfortunately, tonight they put him with Aleister Black. I didn't mind the 1 minute match. The only thing I didn't like was, and I'm sorry for saying it like this, but suddenly he had Joey 924 arms. Like when you swing and you miss, it's okay to swing and miss. I mean, I'm trying to think who used to be able to throw punches and miss. I'm trying to remember who it was. Terry Funk. Perfect example. Anybody looks at old school Terry Funk will just blindside and try to hit and miss. But the thing with Terry Funk is he would extend his arms all the way. What Leon Ruff did tonight was, it's like you have a 5'10" body or a 6-foot body. You can't throw your punches like you're 5'3". It's like instead of, and I'm doing this sideways so people can see, instead of doing it like this, like swinging and missing, it's like almost like he had some type of like handicap, just to say it this way, and he does this. Like, and it came off, it failed on TV. He sold Aleister Black's finisher beautifully, but those punches were cringe, in my opinion.
Yeah, the kick sell was really good, and they even showed it a couple of times. It was very good.
Yeah. Joe Punches says, full Hulk Hogan promo with the ripping of the shirt. Will I do that Friday? The price is right. Maybe I will. Maybe I'll wear 2 shirts and I'll do one. We'll see. Look, we'll have fun. But, it is what it is. It was just to show Aleister Black's, his toughness, and he could win on a spur of the moment, and it kind of feels like you almost could predict what's going to happen with the match with Lashley. Lashley may be dominating, and then all of a sudden, boom, kick out of nowhere, Lashley gets knocked out, Aleister Black gets the win, makes up for him getting that bullshit loss against AJ Styles from a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, again, rhyme to reason. Skipping ahead because I know I want to get into we want to get into the Benoit thing. I don't know how.
Yeah, I mean, really, all we have left tonight, because again, there's really no need to talk about Baszler, Charlie Caruso. We talked about that already with Becky. Rollins and Kevin Owens. That's that's another match. But again, here's the problem that you see already. Rollins and Kevin Owens, you feel like should be a street fight also.
Yes.
So you got 3 matches on Raw that are street fight eligible. Probably be the way, as far as the storyline goes. On the SmackDown side, the only match that kind of feels like it would be street fight eligible would be Cena Fiend. Only one I could think of. And, I don't know what's going to happen with Owens and Rollins, but, they've been building. If you look at all the storylines on Raw, maybe Lesnar, McIntyre, but other than that, Rollins and Owens seem to have been built slowly and decent for months now. So that match I actually would like to see.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I would like to see that too. And by the way, credit to Rollins. He cut a good promo tonight.
Yeah. And we closed out with Randy Orton cutting his promo on Edge that he accepts the challenge for the street fight. Basically continuing, his promo, kind of avoiding the kids' names repeatedly now. You think Beth Phoenix makes an appearance and slaps the bejesus, I hate using that word, but slaps the bejesus out of Orton in this match?
Possibly. I think possibly. I think we could see a few. I think we should see a few wives on the show, DT.
Might see 2.
Yeah.
May see more than 2, but Randy Orton closing it out, no issues at all. Randy Orton is great. This storyline, out of all the matches so far, that's the match I'm kind of looking forward to more than anything.
Yeah, Orton is not phoned it in. Orton's put everything into this. People say, "Oh yeah, because Edge is his buddy." Yes, to a degree, but I think also you give him good material to work with. Randy Orton is a key player, and shows why he's one of the top guys. Didn't have to win the title all the time to be a Hall. Randy Orton's a workhorse. I think he sometimes just lacks motivation, and he does phone it in, but he is far from phoned it in this feud. He's doing everything they can, and it hasn't slowed down just because of the no crowds. It's a shame what happened with Edge and Randy Orton because the crowds would really feed off this particular feud. That's what really sucks, DT, about this. Mm-hmm. Especially Edge's big comeback and stuff. To do it no crowd. It's one of those, kind of punch the table thing. God, these poor guys. But they're pros, they're pros. And down the road, who says they can't have finish it off in a cage or something like that down the road when they can
think that could be happening.
Yeah, you think that's what I was going to say, DT. You think
trust me.
Continue down the road. Yeah.
If they're allowed to have crowds again in certain states, remember, not every state has a major coronavirus problem. But if WWE could have some events sooner than later in some states, telling you right now, I guarantee you're going to hear from everybody else as well. Expect a plethora of WrestleMania rematches because it's going to happen. Maybe not Undertaker and AJ Styles, the rematch, but Edge, Orton, and some others out there. WWE's going to be like, after the match is recorded and done, unless it's heavily edited and made almost perfectly, beautiful, you can feel WWE saying, nah, we ain't just settling for this. We got to do a rematch now with crowds, and we need to hear that electricity. We need to hear this is awesome. So you're going to see some rematches without a doubt once you could have crowds. Yeah. And by the way, Beth Phoenix ain't turning on Edge. She is a commentator on NXT, and they're not looking to turn her into a major character. So something like that is not happening. So let me ask you this before we talk about the Benoit documentary and get out of here. Jerry Lawler said something today. I'm curious what your reaction is to it, but basically what he said is he would not have a problem with, and he almost kind of thought it was a decent idea to have crowd noise piped into the building. What's your thought on that?
I don't like it because it's too obvious, and everyone's gonna. And again, people just focus on that and the haters. It's unnecessary because it's obviously piped in. But listen, they pipe in, as you know, DT laugh tracks for TV shows, and we don't think anything of it. Half the time, you're seeing crowds laughing on Everybody Loves Raymond or King of Queens. There wasn't even a crowd there. So again, this has been done for years. It's done on sitcoms. It's done on dramedies. But for wrestling, I think the curtain has been pulled back now, and we kind of know what's going on. And with coronavirus and everything, I don't know if they should do that at the moment. Just keep doing what they're doing, and I'm just hoping to get back to crowds in whatever states that they can hold these events, even if they cut capacity down, even if a 3,000 seat theater is now 1,500 or whatever, so be it. But because we've proven, and ECW crowds have certainly proven over the years, that you don't have to have thousands of people there to make a lot of noise.
NXT.
So, yeah, NXT, thank you. Yeah, AEW too, to a degree, as everyone shows these empty rows, but then the crowd that's there is so into it that you're questioning, like, really? It sounds like there's 1,000 people there. It's the enthusiasm of the crowd, and that's what we feed off of, and that's what we all miss right now. So yeah, again, don't do it. It's not. This is not. This is not Family Ties. You don't have to pipe in.
That would be horrible. Horrible.
Yeah, I don't like it.
To
I don't like it.
You start giving that. I mean, you remember. I can't remember what it was. It wasn't necessarily the crowd reaction, but it was video. And I remember it was either Roman Reigns or Seth Rollins, but it was something where a wrestler. I can't remember what it was, but I know we talked about it. Maybe someone listening live remembers it. I think it might have been Seth Rollins. No, actually, it could have been Roman Reigns. It was one of those two, but a fan was caught on camera and was like giving the thumbs down to the babyface wrestler. And then later on, WWE edited it in a certain way where it looked like he was giving like a thumbs down to the opponent. Brian Long says Roman Reigns. Okay. Shezzy says maybe it was Roman Reigns or Triple H. I don't know. No, it was not WrestleMania. Definitely not WrestleMania. Shezzy, you're 0 for 2 tonight, my friend. And I say that with love. It was definitely Roman Reigns. They were manipulating crowd video to turn it a certain way. And, okay, yeah, Mortality, you are correct. Roman Reigns, when he beat Chris Jericho for the U.S. title, there were fans that were not happy with Roman Reigns winning that match. And the way that they changed the video later on, it looked like the fans were negatively reacting at Chris Jericho. I remember that now. Do not manipulate. One thing about wrestling is authenticity when it comes to crowds. And you start giving an aura that crowds are going, you start piping in. I mean, they've piped in noise in the past, but we have no idea how the crowd would react towards Reigns and with Goldberg. And I think we know how the crowd would react with Goldberg, but you start playing that on replay and you hear this crazy amounts of cheers, and you know that a lot of people would have booed, that will hurt that wrestler later on. Because the fans will turn around and say, okay, WWE, you want to stop me? Because I remember it happened to Roman Reigns years ago. They were manipulating and editing stuff, and it was pissing fans off even more. That WWE was forcing a certain narrative because they didn't like how the crowd was reacting to them.
Yeah. No,
so, anyway, we're not going to talk about the specific matches tonight. We'll do it next week because that'll lead into Mania. But this is the current lineup. I don't know if they're all confirmed, but this is the list that I have for the WWE title. Brock Lesnar defends against Drew McIntyre for the Universal title. Goldberg defends against Roman Reigns. NXT Women's Championship, Rhea Ripley defends against Charlotte. For the Raw Women's title, Becky Lynch defends against Shayna Baszler. The SmackDown Women's match is now a 5-way. It is Bayley versus Tamina versus Naomi versus Sasha versus Lacey Evans. Maybe they will add somebody in the place of Dana Brooke. Maybe they'll leave it as a 5-way. A lot of people are a little surprised Nia Jax wasn't added to that, even though I think, she's getting close to a return. Angel Garza teaming up with Andrade to take on the Street Profits, who are the current Raw Tag Champs. Last man standing match, Edge versus Randy Orton, Bray Wyatt versus John Cena, The Undertaker versus AJ Styles in the Boneyard match, Kevin Owens versus Seth Rollins, Elias versus Corbin, Bobby Lashley versus Aleister Black. And even though it hasn't been announced yet, and again, that's probably the extra match I said that's going to be added on, probably the Kabuki Warriors are going to defend against A Moment to Piss.
Yeah.
They haven't. They'll probably make that official on Friday. So, we'll get some added matches announced, and we'll talk about it next week. Maybe we'll even do like a WrestleMania preview, maybe that Saturday afternoon or something, because I have a feeling some things may not even be completely solidified until next Friday's SmackDown.
Oh, no, I agree. Yeah, no, you're right.
Yeah. So, before we go, everybody, we had over the weekend, some areas were able to see it. Some areas were not. Mish was the prime guy to get part 2 of it, which I know a lot of people have not seen, but a lot of people did see the first part of the Chris Benoit documentary, the Vice series, Dark Side of the Ring. Is it?
Yeah, Dark Side of the Ring. Vice posted it themselves, part 1.
Part 1, but Mitch was able to get part 2.
Mitch got part 2, that's correct.
Now, you saw it. You really enjoyed it. I'll give you the floor, and, whatever you want to talk about, what you saw and what caught your eye and why you enjoyed it so much, and I'll give you my opinion on it.
Yeah, I saw it in the order. Part 1 I saw on Friday, and part 2 I saw on Saturday. I like the way it was done. I thought it was done. It wasn't, a Star Magazine piece or a TMZ thing. It wasn't scandalous. It wasn't salacious. It was done properly. The documentary, the reenactments, and the people that got to play them. Geez, I don't know where they scour to get people who look similar to them, but boy, they did a good job. And they don't have a plethora of money. This is not like, A&E Network. This is Vice TV. They did a great job with the reenactments. They did a great job with telling the story. They got the proper people, Vicky, Chavo, Chris Benoit's oldest son, David. They got Dean Malenko's wife. And I'll get into what she revealed, something that I did not know about, never heard a podcast to talk about in a minute. They got the right players. They did chronological order. They went way back, the Wayback Machine, as they say, with Chris Benoit starting out, his career. But they also covered Nancy's career, woman. Nancy Sullivan, Nancy Benoit, woman, whatever you, Fallen Angel, whatever you know her as. She's known as so many names. They covered her career, how she got in. They showed a picture of her in the stands with her first husband before she was even with Kevin Sullivan. And she got married at 18 years old, went to school in Florida, dropped out of high school, got married. Her husband at the time was a wrestling fan, took her to the matches. Beautiful girl. Looks a lot like Valerie Bertinelli from One Day at a Time. If you remember the old school Valerie Bertinelli back in the 70s. Real beautiful face, good-looking girl. And Kevin Sullivan saw her in the stands and got her into wrestling, had no wrestling, was just a fan picked out of the stand. So she's a real pioneer when you think about it. Learned on the go, learned under Kevin Sullivan. She left her husband for Kevin Sullivan. You know how that story went, but they got into what she did in wrestling. A lot of clips that you never seen before. Some of you guys only know her as woman who managed Doom and the Sandman in ECW and don't know a lot about her Florida days. Some of you guys weren't even born back then. She debuted in 1984. I saw her in the West Palm Beach Auditorium when she first came out. I was walking around on a dog chain in a bikini with Kevin Sullivan. That's how today you would never see that. But she was a pioneer, and she could talk, and she had a look, and she just looked at you and just had she had it. And I love that they covered her career and they gave her the props. She is forgotten in all of this. She's known as victim. Victim number one, the son was victim number two. She was a star in her own right, way before Chris Benoit even got in a wrestling ring. She was older than Chris Benoit. And I like that they covered that. They covered Eddie Guerrero, who played a very almost disturbing best friend role. Chris was obsessed with Eddie to a disturbing degree. I've never seen, now listen, I have a best friend named Rob, and Rob is like my brother. But again, the degree of mourning and sorrow, and you'll see it, and it's hard to watch, but you understand a lot more about a man's descent into madness, basically, from Chris Benoit, and how it started with Eddie's death, and then the growth hormones and things and steroids that he was taking. It really fucked up his mind. The chair shots were coming. All this stuff manifested itself. You're going to really get the spectrum of a man who was okay for the most part, and then the breakdowns and the deaths and the depression and the medications and the pill addiction. And you're going to see it, how this transpired. Another thing they covered was Nancy's abusive relationship with Kevin Sullivan, where Nancy went to Dean Malenko's wife, who was either a psychiatrist or worked for a psychiatrist, and was there when Nancy took off her glasses and Kevin Sullivan had beaten the shit out of her. And Dean Malenko's wife was on camera saying Kevin Sullivan beat up Nancy and she encouraged her to leave him, and Chris was there. This was a whole intervention they did with Nancy to get away from Kevin Sullivan. Never knew that. Never heard that. Never knew that. Kevin Sullivan refused to come on to defend himself. I heard them on Jim Cornette. The guys who did the show were on Jim Cornette's podcast, which was taped over the weekend, aired today, and said that Kevin refused to come on and discuss it. He just denied the charges. But Dean Malenko's wife said she was there. She was there, saw Nancy's face after it happened to her. And I never heard this before, DT. That was a little disturbing. I have a little bit of a different opinion of Kevin Sullivan now. But again, I don't know the whole story, but I thought it was interesting that Dean Malenko's wife was a part of this documentary. Never saw Dean Malenko's wife before. Never knew her. Dean was on too. Dean, unfortunately, showing some signs of Parkinson's, which was a little upsetting to me. The shakes that, like Michael J. Fox suffers, people from Parkinson's. That seems to be, unfortunately, affecting Dean now. That was bothering me more than anything else, to be honest with you, because I felt bad for Dean. And Vicky Guerrero was on. Vicky came off really well. Was very honest about her feelings about Chris and killing her friend and all this stuff, and how he was mourning loss of her husband. It is some story. It is probably the most, wow. I mean, I don't know if scandalous is the word, because the way it just all went down, someone books their own divorce practically. Kevin Sullivan didn't push Nancy into the arms of Benoit, but they were obviously having an abusive relationship at home. Chris was the shoulder to cry on. Nancy chose Chris over Kevin. It was an angle that came to real life, but Chris and Nancy were together for over 10 years. So it wasn't some afterthought fling where he was just the next guy who was there, because those relationships don't last if you're just the next guy. So clearly there was a love there, but they had the one child. Nancy didn't have any kids up until she had Daniel. Daniel was her only child. She never had any kids with Kevin Sullivan. I didn't know that. I thought they had kids. That was another thing I wasn't aware of. And again, it was just a story that you think you know everything about this story, and you're going to learn some stuff, even about the way Nancy was killed was very disturbing. That Chris, in fact, broke her back. I did not know that. I thought he did something to her neck. I didn't know that he literally broke her back in half, putting the crippled crossface on her, which is really disturbing. By the way, using a finisher to kill somebody is, my God. Again, it's a very sad story. We all know the ending, but we don't know a lot of things. And that Chris had a search history on his computer of looking up things about sacrificing things and death and murder and religious sacrifices. Didn't know that. Didn't know Chris was on searches for that for 2 days while his wife was upstairs dead Friday night through Sunday. So this is not a crime of passion, folks. This was a cruel and calculated murder by a man who who really descended into madness. Do I feel differently about Chris Benoit? Yeah, of course I do. Honestly, I was more of a woman Fallen Angel fan than ever was a Chris Benoit fan. But I feel terrible for the whole family. But I don't want to ruin it for you. There's a beautiful ending to this. And and you're going to say, Kev, how could there be a beautiful ending to it? There is. I won't tell you what it is, but Chris Jericho played a role in making this end in an okay way for two families. Let me just put it to you that way. And that actually got me upset more than I knew everything else. I was prepared for the murder. I was prepared for the sordid details of the child dying. That was terrible. But what happened at the end with two families and Chris Jericho being the guy who brokered this situation was, I have nothing but respect for Chris Jericho. I've given him a hard time over the years, but that was on a wrestling level. What a great humanitarian, and you'll know what I'm talking about when you see it. There was a happy ending to this craziness in a way, and you'll see what I mean. I don't want to ruin that. I told enough, but please watch the whole thing, 1 through part 2. It's 2 hours. Watch both parts and then make a decision. Don't base it off of part 1 because you might be a little depressed after part 1, but watch through part 2 and you'll be glad that you did. And it's and the guys' advice and the guys at Dark Side of the Ring did a tremendous job. Again, I thought it was one of the best things I've seen in a long time. Depressing, sad story, yes, but you couldn't have ended it a better way because the living was suffering, and Chris Jericho helped to lessen that suffering for two people. You'll see what I'm talking about, and I think you'll like it. And you'll take an emotional roller coaster ride. Whether you're a Benoit fan, whether you're a Nancy fan, whether you're just a fan of wrestling, it's a human story. So check it out. It's really good. It's probably the best one I've seen them do. I thought the Bruiser Brody one was tremendous. This one's the best, and I'm very interested to see what DT says because I couldn't find anything wrong with it other than it's a sad story. But I knew that going in.
All right, just hear me out. And I know some people may disagree with me. I just respect how I feel. I respect how other people feel in this. All right. Some of the things I'm going to say is stuff that I said way back when. As far as her injuries, there were like reports from autopsy and things that came out at the time. Nancy Benoit's sister said on Jericho's podcast a couple of years ago about the internet searches. A couple of things. Was it well made? Absolutely. Is there a nice ending to it as far as the members of the Benoit family that are alive? Absolutely. My take on this is I didn't like it at all. And I'll tell you the reason why.
Okay.
It was very well made, and this goes back to something I've said for years and years and years. You and I, everybody listening, we did not know Chris Benoit. We did not know Eddie. We did not know them personally. May have met someone here and there, but we didn't know them personally. The friends, the family, the wrestlers who are very close to Eddie, very close to Chris Benoit. Just like any of us, to have a very close friend that we've known for all our lives, a family member. How many times have you seen on the news someone kills their family or kills someone and they interview relatives or neighbors and they say, he was a wonderful person and never in a million years would ever expect this person this and that. So fans, friends, and the family of Chris Benoit do not want to accept the fact that this guy murdered his wife, murdered his young child, his son. Right. And it feels like at the end of the day, Jericho and everybody else loved Chris Benoit, loved Nancy, and we will never know the exact trigger that pushed Chris Benoit to murder. I see people online talking about, he had the brain of an 80-year-old. Well, I know a lot of 80-year-olds that never committed murder, so I don't know what that means. The reason why I didn't like this documentary is, number one, my immediate reaction was they almost painted Kevin Sullivan worse than Chris Benoit, who murdered his family. And his close relationship with Eddie Guerrero was obviously powerful, but it felt like that the people who were very close to Eddie and very close to Chris Benoit are trying to find the reason why Chris Benoit did what he did, and they feel that it's because of the steroids, it's because of the concussions, it's because of Eddie's death, it's because of marriage problems, it's because of his son. It's like everything combined, and that just made him snap. Well, guess what? At the end of the day, we don't know. The only people that know is Chris Benoit and God. Those are the only people that will ever know. And the Eddie stuff was so sad and so powerful. And Chavo talking about how Eddie died in his arms and that, like, you got so down in that emotion. You're like, oh my God, you know, that was his best friend. I would have just lost it too. I just didn't like that you take the closeness of Eddie Guerrero and Chris Benoit. It made me feel the same way about Aaron Hernandez. Aaron Hernandez, they try to say, well, it was the concussions because of homosexuality, because of this, because of that. There's no justification for murder. You know, as far as family and friends go, I totally respect anybody who is a family member or a friend of Chris Benoit that will not accept that this guy just snapped. This guy, but at the end of the day, you'll never know the reason. And I understand that the Benoit family want to sleep at night thinking that they know the answer. It was this, and this.
Or that they blame wrestling.
Yeah, whatever they blame. But at the end of the day, sadly, and this is the thing that this documentary I thought failed miserably on. Sadly, you will never know what the reason was. But they painted it in a way where you took all of these things, especially the Eddie stuff, and it's like, hey, man, you know, like, the guy, it was just so many abnormal things that just drew him over the edge. And you can't come to that conclusion because we don't know. And even if he wrote a suicide letter explaining it, still, I mean, there are people out there. I just watched the other day on Forensic Files. I think it's the Long, who was the case of the guy, the Long from 1969 or whatever it was, and he killed his family and he put Bibles next to them and he wrote to his pastor why he did what he did. I can't remember the guy's name right now. It might have been his name, but we don't know. We will never know. Now, again, I didn't like the fact that, you know, they really painted Kevin Sullivan as again, I saw the feedback from people also. It's like, all right, look, we never justify somebody beating up anybody for any reason, but this was Dark Side of the Ring, Chris Benoit. Now, if you want to bring up Nancy, you know, this was not Dark Side of the Ring, Chris and Nancy Benoit. It was Chris Benoit. And I just felt like, you know, the way that they painted Kevin Sullivan as this monster, there were people out there that were more angry about Kevin Sullivan than Chris Benoit.
Well, because he's still alive and everybody else is dead.
Yeah, and the thing is that family members, friends, relatives of Chris Benoit will, and it's human nature, you want to grasp on what you believe is the reason because you don't want to accept the fact that someone you loved and thought you knew and a family member could ever do what they did. But unfortunately, at the end of the day, none of us know the reason. Could have had nothing to do with steroids. Could have had nothing to do with Eddie's death. Did everything become a contributing factor? Of course. But it felt like Vice, to make the family, friends, and relatives and fans that don't want to believe the bitter truth will paint it this way, and we'll show the closeness of Eddie, and we'll talk about this, and we'll show this, and put it all together and make it so sad and so powerful that you're left with sympathy for Chris Benoit. And no matter what they did on that documentary, when it ended and the credits rolled, it doesn't take away the fact that this guy murdered his wife and murdered his son. And there's no excuse that you could give me to turn around and for me to get sympathy for something like that. For the simple reason that we don't know the actual reason behind it. I always think about his WCW entrance theme, which was silent but violent. You know, and it's like, wow, talk about like how weird that entrance theme and how accurate it ended up being. You know, there's a lot of people that we know in our lifetime that we think we know, but you only know what is portrayed to you. And they have this really dark, part of themselves, or skeletons in their closet. You see people who are, pedophiles, or you see people who were, doing this and doing that, and were doing it for 5, 10, 20, 30 years. Nobody ever had an idea. You see cases of forensic files where somebody has an alternate, I watched the movie The Stepfather the other day, where he's got this total, at the end of the day, none of us will ever know why he did what he did. But no matter how many factors you want to put into it, it still does not take away the fact that he killed a kid, killed his wife, hung himself, tried to break his neck, and figured out ways to do it as quickly and as least painful as possible. And at the end of the day, he is a double murderer. And,
no doubt about it.
Again, I understand family. If I tried to pretend that's my father, and if my father flipped out and killed somebody, my mother or somebody else, and I say to myself, how would I react to that? And me, I know how my father is, and my father loves my mother. My father, the days of my mother was on a deathbed 3.5 years ago, I saw how my father was. And if my father turned around and did something like that, I would try to figure out every reason whatsoever. I would have his brain analyzed. I would have autopsy. I would have blood work done. I would have DNA. I would have everything. I would check his bills. I would check pressure. I mean, but at the end of the day, I will never know what was inside his head to push him over the edge. But I will, because I loved my dad, and my dad's still here, and my dad's not a murderer, but I would love my dad, that I would want to come up with a reason to go to sleep at night and say, my father, he really wasn't a murderer, because he didn't know what he was doing. He was out of his mind. He did this, and that. We don't want to accept the facts. And again, the documentary was, I don't call it a documentary, but the what Vice did was beautifully done, well produced. Jericho obviously is just I sing the praise about Jericho with charity and everything all the time. Vicky is wonderful. Chavo is wonderful. And I don't take anything away from that. But it just felt to me that Vice is trying, like everybody that was in that doc, whatever you want to call it, they don't want to accept the fact that Chris Benoit murdered his family. They're trying to find the reason. And it felt like Vice painted this a certain way. So when it's done, yes, we know that at the end of the day, Chris Benoit was a murderer. But, you think of this, and you think of Eddie, and you think of steroids, and you think of concussions, and you think of this, and you think of that, and you think of this. You kind of feel, you have to have a little bit of sympathy there, and this and that. And at the end of the day, why do people kill people? You know what I mean? Why do people kill people? You don't need to have science, science here, science there. There are people with perfectly beautiful brains that kill people. And there's no rhyme or reason. You'll never understand it. You see mothers who have postpartum depression, and they kill kids for absolutely no reason whatsoever. And they kill themselves, and you try to, it was this, and it was that, and it was this. At the end of the day, we will never know why he did what he did. And again, same thing with Aaron Hernandez.
Well, I think
if God came down, if God made an appearance on his earth and said, my children, this is why Chris Benoit did what he did, then I would accept it. But a Vice documentary is not going to change my mind. I just feel that they really played on the emotions of Eddie more than anything else. And I just thought that was a little bit unfair, because using that closeness, and Eddie is so beloved in such a sad story, and because they were so close, and because it devastated Chris Benoit, people lose their wives, people lose their mothers, their fathers, their husbands, their brothers, they lose children, tragically, and it doesn't resort to murder. It resorts to alcohol, and it resorts to drugs, but it still, in almost every case, does not result in murder. So I can't come to that conclusion. However, if Chris Benoit was someone I loved personally, someone I cared personally, then yes, I would try to find a reason other than the fact that someone I loved was a murderer. And that's why I don't like it.
Right. I think anybody would do that. I mean, I'm sure Jeffrey Dahmer had a relative who wanted to find the good part of him. I don't think that they paid. I was sympathetic towards Nancy and Daniel. I was sympathetic towards David Benoit and Nancy's sister. I wasn't sympathetic towards Chris Benoit. That's, at least I wasn't. I can only speak for how I felt about it. I didn't come away saying, oh, yeah, you know, he had a very unhealthy, almost, I don't even know what to even say about his obsession with Eddie Guerrero. It was disturbing, actually, very disturbing. And even Vicky came off that it was disturbing. Vicky had alluded to the fact that they didn't, I mean, they mourned Eddie, they loved Eddie, that was her husband, but Chris took it to another level where her daughter, Shar, and the other one would say, yeah, Chris is crying in Daddy's room again. Like, that was just weird. I was just like, and Vicky had said a year went by at that point. Because she was good friends with Nancy, so she would see Chris often.
I still cry about my dog, and I put him to sleep 6 years ago.
I get that, DT, but you don't go in someone else's room and sit down on their weight bench and cry whether you have your two young daughters in there. It's like it's a little unsettling. So clearly Chris had mental issues too, and that's not an excuse. I mean, half the people in jail, there's people who are like Hannibal Lecter in real life, and they want to kill, and they have a propensity to want to kill. And there are people who kill for thrills. There are people who kill at crimes of passion. There are people who kill in war, right, and then could never hurt anybody outside of a war. And
everything that they showed does not answer the question, why did Chris Benoit kill his family?
Well, he was, but you can't deny that the man was slipping into madness. There was no doubt his behavior pattern was
justify killing him.
No, it doesn't justify anything, but perhaps they should have got him a lot of couch time. I mean, I found it interesting that they intervened with Nancy, but maybe Chris, again, you can't force someone to do an intervention or whatever, or Chris had a different type of personality. Again, they told one thing you have to say, DT, they told Nancy's story pretty well, who never really got her story told. You know, we knew who she was, but a lot of people didn't really know who she was, you know. And the relationship with the two brothers, and it was, like I said, there was nothing. It was not a good time feel. This is not what this was about. It was about a better understanding of exactly how this affected certain people, the breakdown of it, the time frames of it.
Still doesn't justify murder.
Oh, no, it doesn't. I don't think anybody ever tried to justify it.
No. I'm not saying anybody justified it, but everybody. I saw tons of people who are now saying, "Well, you know what? Combination of this, and this drove him to murder." And at the end of the day, none of us know that.
No.
We want to believe that, but the only two people that know is Chris Benoit and God. Or the devil, if you want to look at it like that.
And Nancy.
We will never know. When you see people that go to their grave without, and look, you could write a suicide note and totally lie about the reasons because you don't want your name. Look, if he would have wrote a suicide letter and blamed it on this or Eddie or this is as death and depression, this and that, that doesn't still mean that that's the reason why. It's just that when you're gone, if you write it that way, then people might feel like, you know what, look, he wrote a suicide letter and he was just devastated about this and because of this, and he had so much pain and he couldn't take it anymore and this and that. That doesn't mean that person is being completely honest. That person wants you to remember that person in that way, so maybe he's not looked at as evil. Do I know if Chris Benoit was an evil man at heart? I have no idea. I didn't know him personally. But at the end of the day, he murdered a kid and he murdered his wife. And there's no contributing factor that makes me say, okay, that's the reason why. Or all of these things led to it. We don't know at the end of the day.
No, and I agree with you. And the thing that bothered me about this was the calculation of it and the time frame and the fact that he texted Scott Armstrong, Road Dogg's brother, the referee, and Chavo Jr., that Nancy and Daniel have stomach viruses. I might have to take them to the emergency room. Nancy was already dead Friday
he's trying to buy time, figuring out how he could kill himself.
So that's right, exactly. That's where he had to get the gusto to like. All right, I got to do. I'm not gonna. I can't go to. I'm gonna go to jail the rest of my life. I don't know. And listen, fear of jail. A lot of people said Kerry Von Erich feared going to jail with one fucking leg and going to a hardened prison in fucking Texas that he couldn't take it. And people were saying not that he was a coward or he's a tough wrestler. He's like, I will not survive jail. I have one fucking foot. I'm a target. I'm not going to be in isolation for the next 20 years.
Who said that? He told someone that?
I can pick. Kerry Von Erich, that when he killed himself, there was a lot of talk. Even Kevin said that Kerry, and even a lot of people, Gary Hart said that Kerry couldn't envision going to
okay, because he told people that he couldn't envision that.
Right. But Chris would have. Kerry was only doing about maybe 10-year stint for the drug trafficking. But Chris would have.
Look at Brian Christopher. They're saying that he killed him. They think he killed himself in jail. Right. He couldn't even stay there one night.
Right. It could be that. It could be the whole envisioning. I can't, my freedom is taken away, and I'm this disgraziata to my family, this disgrace. I can't, some people really go and say, this is the only way I have to check out. I got to check out. And I think Chris Benoit needed 2 days to get himself to do that. And once he killed his son, again, and his son, people saying, well, maybe he didn't want his son raised by. I mean, he had grandparents and he had people that could have raised his son. I don't know why he had to kill his son. I don't know what the man was thinking. His little son wouldn't have been an orphan and in an orphanage. He would have had his grandparents raise him. Happens to kids all the time who lose parents in floods, fires, car accidents. I don't know what he was thinking.
We'll never know.
We'll never know. But again, it is such a touchy thing. It's not a good time feeling. When I highly recommend it, I say I loved it. It's weird for me to say.
Oh yeah, I recommend if people want to. Yeah. It's definitely interesting, but I just don't like I said, it was molded together in a way to appease the family and the friends and to try to come up with a conclusion that is more believable, but at the end of the day is not the reason. And by the way, the Forensic Files episode was the List murders, not Long, the List murders.
Yeah.
But hey, everybody gets to see part 1 tomorrow.
Yeah, and then part 2 again. And then they have, I think, I'm not sure what the next one is. I know they're closing the season. They said it on Cornette's podcast today. Owen Hart will be the last episode of the end of season 2. So you got to wait till the very end to see Owen Hart. And in the upcoming weeks, you'll see Dino Bravo, New Jack, a whole bunch of stuff. So some good stuff they got. It was a good way to kick it off, and certainly it's going to be talked about. It's trending already, and people are talking about it, and it's going to bring up some painful memories for some people and a lot of interest for others.
Yeah. All right. With that said, we're running a little bit late, so we'll call it. And then any final comments before we go?
Yeah, can I just give a couple of special shout-outs to some people? I just want to shout out James G, Anthony C, Russ, Tommy, and special shout out to Patrick from North Carolina. And DT, you'll like this. I won't tell you what it is, but he sent me something, something I've never had as a wrestling fan in my 40 years. And I'm going to take a picture. I'll post it tomorrow online. You can check it out. It's something he gave me, and I think fans will get a kick out of it. It's wrestling related, so everyone will be interested in it. And a special shout out to our friend Vito the Cop, who came by my house today, not for a welfare check, DT, thank God. He came by to drop off some stuff. He's a big fan of the show, and just gave me some household products and stuff. So I got laid off and stuff and wanted to do a solid for one of his favorite podcasters, me and you, and that was very nice of him. So thanks, Vito, for doing that. I appreciate it. Definitely get nervous when a cop stops by your house, but not this time.
Right.
There you go. So, so shout out to him. Big shout out to and everybody who's looked in. Listen, a lot of you guys have been laid off and stuff, and I feel your pain. And hopefully we'll get back to work in a few weeks. Let's keep our fingers crossed that I am not throwing in the towel. Oh, my God, what am I going to do? I'm nervous. I'm frustrated, but I'm not giving up hope. I see the light at the end of the tunnel. I hope you guys do too. We are forced to be home now, and some of us can't make money until other people are out and about doing what they need to do. And hopefully, DT, this will go maybe another few weeks. We'll keep examining it as each show goes by, and hopefully we'll have better news. But I hope everybody can just sit tight now. I hope you have the means or the family or the funds to get by the next few weeks. I'm trying to do what I need to do. Hopefully you guys are doing that too. And, fingers crossed, everybody gets back to work.
All right. Sounds good. I'll talk to you tomorrow.
All right, man. I'll see everybody tomorrow night for KNT 10:15. Sign up, Patreon/Don Tony today, $5, and you can join us tomorrow night live on the chat.
Yep. Sounds good.
All right, peace,
All right,
everybody.
talk to you later. All right, everybody. Hey, it seems like we had no issues whatsoever today with the audio or the video. So the cables I changed. Hey, it's funny. I've been doing computer stuff for 25 years or so, and maybe 2 or 3 times in my lifetime did I ever come across like really bad cables to cause problems. But it seems like it may in fact have been a cable issue that was giving us some technical difficulties last couple of weeks. So, a little configuration things as well. But I'm glad it seems like we got that all ironed out. And I'm out of here. So make sure Wednesday night you'll get another episode of Wednesday Night Don-O-Mite. Obviously, a little bit abbreviated for the simple reason that all the other promotions, pretty much are not doing anything right now. We'll definitely talk about AEW Wednesday. I have a couple of indie tidbits I definitely want to get into, and we'll make it fun. And then this Friday, don't forget, 10:15 p.m., right after SmackDown, yours truly and Mish. It's going to be my birthday. I don't ever celebrate birthdays, but we're going to do it on Friday. We're doing a marathon show. We're going to raise money, and we're going to, like I said, we're splitting it right down the middle, and we're going to give proceeds to the COVID-19 relief fund. COVID-19, another word for coronavirus. And we will post, everything that is contributed publicly. Got to give major props to Kevin Matthews once again, who, didn't give us the idea, but, as I explained on Friday, there was a woman, an indie wrestler from Jersey, who her birthday was coming up, and she was telling everybody to PayPal her $5 for her birthday. And, he would basically told her, like, how's about telling everybody to donate $5 for charity? For, a lot more to it, but I said, hey, that's not a bad idea. Maybe we could do that. So, and I'll explain on Wednesday again the format of how we're going to do this Friday. And it's going to be a lot of fun. Remember, you could ask me anything, ask Mish anything. We're going to talk about wrestling, non-wrestling. We'll have a lot of fun. But all right, everybody, have a great night. And I will catch you all again Wednesday for Wednesday Night Don-O-Mite. Take care, everybody. Peace. Ciao.
Don-O-Mite.
It was fun to channel surf. It was kind of hard to do a little pocket pool after you hitting the last channel button 50 times for 2 hours plus.
Don-O-Mite.
And his whole idea of overanalyzing, he's an alcoholic and he misplaced the belt. And how could you have someone champion like that? The fuck out of here.
Wednesday night.
Don-O-Mite, you can have fun. You really are.